And they form it into this wire frame, which you can see here. Metal, as we know, we talked about before, it's conductive. So then they apply super low voltage. And I know that sounds terrifying. We've all seen the movies of like people throwing toasters into a bathtub or something. It's so low that like we wouldn't feel it, it wouldn't harm us. It's barely a thing. I mean, we put off little bits of electricity. That's how sharks and other organisms find each other. Anyway, that low voltage attracts the minerals that are found right there. That dissolved calcium, magnesium, etc. They crystallize on the frame right here. You can start to see that happening. They precipitate, to use the chemistry word, they precipitate. And they form this little like white crust. And it's just about as strong as concrete. And what is it? Calcium carbonate. So what do the divers do next? They leave this on, they leave this charge, this tiny little charge going through on this metal. And then once the crust builds up, they can take little coral fragments. A lot of times these are grown in a lab. Not always, sometimes they're taken from healthy reefs too. They take little fragments and they can attach them to the crust. Now, because the materials are exactly the same, they bond. The coral now can grow 3 to 5 times faster than they would normally. The crust can thicken about 5 centimeters a year as long as that current's flowing. So they kind of give it like a boost. They give it like a kickstart. The structure grows and it strengthens and it grows and it strengthens, and then they turn off the current. Because now the thing looks like a reef. It can heal itself. It's a living thing. And they've already attracted all these other organisms. The shade sort of first kickstarts this. When we've barely got any crust at all, that shade alone starts bringing some of the organisms in. Ooh, can I hide under here? Maybe I won't be seen. We end up with biodiversity that's restored. The coral is colonized. The shoreline is protected. Now we're taking that carbon in. That means that just like plants were spitting the oxygen out, thanks to those endosymbionts, the algae. And so we have more fish coming in, more fish, more animals, ecological cascade for the good. Nature can just take over. Now we're starting to do this with corals found mostly again in the Middle East that are more resistant to higher ocean temperatures. Stronger coral. So I talked about just using a couple of elements. That's what nature does, and that's what we're doing it. Even the conducting elements that, the calcium and magnesium, they're found in the water. There's no mining, there's no transport, there's no processing, there's no high energy requirement. We're not heating up anything, we're not pounding anything. So what if we just added like solar or wind or tidal to, produce that voltage in the first place? Aside from just that rebar. Holy cow. But okay, so that takes time. People, in the meantime, they're still going to want seawalls. We can't always veer away from all the traditional solutions we have. People can sometimes get turned off by newness, and so we have to adapt. So can we improve upon them? What if we used Calera cement in the meantime to do that? Well, the estimated cost of sea level rise could be $14 trillion per year by 2100. 14 trillion. Again, I can't even visualize what that is. So, could we create coastal defense systems that are also seawalls? Could we create a living wall? Now, earlier you might have been asking yourself, okay, if the problem is that the shape of our seawalls is just this flat, big, ugly slab that bounces back the energy and causes more problems, can't we just change the shape? Yup, we can. This is a company called eConcrete, and they mimic marine rocks, oyster beds, seagrass habitats by creating opportunities for the shorelines and these seawalls to not just protect against the wave action, but by inviting organisms in. Now, this particular thing, which, modular, got something in there, is in the Sydney Harbor, and it is created by Volvo. They've got a really beautiful website and a really great little video that you should definitely watch. And what we see is instead of making one flat slab, they've got some little shapes already that they can get into. They start by adding these little modular pieces, and we start with that colony, that ecological succession starts to form. I've got some little bivalves happening. I've got some little bits of algae that's happening. I've got limpets and seaweed and all this stuff starting until I have an ecosystem again that can clean the water, that can slow down the water. So now, if I have to have some sort of seawall, it doesn't just have to create this dead, ugly, lifeless, flat, horrible shape. It can be something beautiful. It can create conditions conducive to life. Which is just like, look at this. This is weird looking, but look, they can make these tidal pools. They do the same thing. And before you know it, you have a whole ecosystem where you didn't have anything before. So the point is this. Biomimicry works. It can restore. If we can look at organisms and systems like coral reefs as a mentor, we can model our designs after them like these last 3 companies did. We can measure our success and say, do our shapes, do our things, do as much as what the natural shape does? Can we take 50% of the energy given by a tsunami and just like lull it? Can we do the same thing with your general storms by 97%? We have data. Can we create things as good as nature can? Can our structures, our buildings create conditions conducive to life? We can. It works. It's beyond sustainable. It's net positive. We're not neutral. We need to stop getting away from this carbon neutral. Net positive. So this is why I said in the very beginning, this is why I study this stuff. Because biomimicry gives me hope. Because we can learn from nature to be part of a solution rather than the problem. And we can create and heal the environment instead of just creating just for ourselves. We can give back. Wouldn't it feel so good to give back? So I leave you with this. What would it look like if we look to nature for all of our large structures? If you are going to redesign, if you could, the city of the future, taking maybe the existing things we have now, or heck, you could imagine you're on another planet, who knows? But what if we could just build the way that nature did? So who else are the architects? We looked at coral. Who else builds big? Who else is strong? Who else can we look up to? Well, stay tuned.